Hello, greetings out there to everyone in YouTube land. Hello to all the mystics and the dreamers. My name is Belle. I'd like to do a tarot reading today. Today I'm going to be using the Chrysalis Tarot and the Shadowscapes Tarot. I'm going to be interpreting the images in my own way. It's not really divination, it's more of a chance to think about some spiritual ideas. And I'm going to draw 5 cards from each deck, and we'll see how it goes. I've been thinking a lot recently about the path of soul and whether or not, just different elements of the path of soul. And to me, a soulful path is related to a path of personal development. And I'm going to be writing more about that, so hopefully I'll have more ideas about the path of soul in the future, more ideas to share. But we'll just see how it goes. Got my coffee here. So we'll see how this card reading goes, see if it relates to the path of soul at all. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I'm going to start with the Chrysalis Tarot. I've already shuffled and drawn the cards. First card is 8 of Spirals. This is like Bambi fleeing the forest fire. This is how I think of this card. It's almost like that sense of urgency, that sense that something isn't quite right. The next card is 6 of Stones. This is the Tree of Life, and it has a Celtic knot in the middle, and there are some offerings there shown by the pendants. So it's interesting, already we have these 2 cards beside each other that are completely different. We have a sense of something being wrong, a sense of urgency in the card with the deer, and then we have this grand Tree of Life on the other side. It's really interesting to me because it's like such a different scene for each one and such a different way of approaching life. On one hand, this is a lot of stress. In this one, you feel like you have to run away from things. And on the other hand, this tree isn't going anywhere. There's a lot of green in this picture too. It's really interesting. Take another sip of coffee there. See what the third card is. Golden Flower, Temperance. It almost seems like it's a nature mandala. Let's hold on this side. Look, it looks like there's good light on either side. Either side. It's a little bit overcast today. That's why the light isn't even better. Temperance, a sense of balance, a sense of things being in an equilibrium. Fourth card, Merlin. I think this is pretty interesting that in this deck, the Chrysalis Tarot, they've made the Fool card start off as the hero. It says the hero, and then it says Merlin. So that's kind of a whole different atmosphere to this deck than usual, because usually the Fool is someone stepping off of the precipice and not sure what's going to happen. But in this deck, it's almost like they're starting off with a wisdom tarot because they have Merlin, and he's lived a lot of years. He's very wise. He's very magical. So that's really interesting that they chose to switch that card around like that. I wonder if that changes the meaning of the whole deck in a different way. And then we have, for the last card of the Chrysalis Tarot, we have 9 of Mirrors. And the Nine of Mirrors. Looks like there's some fairies and some nature, some raindrops. It looks like maybe sunflowers there too. So let's see if I can relate this to the Path of Soul and see if that inspires some other words of wisdom. Not that I'm always full of words of wisdom, but it's just how I like to think of approaching the tarot. Like, I like to think of it as a way to bring out some wisdom ideas that you wouldn't normally have access to, or you wouldn't normally stop to think about as much. So we had the urgency or the stress of the Eight of Spirals. We had the majestic silence, the majestic steadiness of the Six of Stones with the Tree of Life. We have balance with Temperance card, which is like this mandala of the sunflower and different things. And we have the fact that the Fool card has been turned into the Hero, represented by Merlin, which is like totally different. And then at the end we have Nine of Mirrors, which is kind of a whimsical card that we just saw with the nature. Maybe there's a nature fairies, something like that. So all of this relates to the Path of Soul, but it doesn't really seem to be that orderly. And it's interesting how in our culture, at least the way that I grew up, I'm used to things being pretty orderly, pretty easily understandable, everything in a certain outline, in a certain structure, or things being very clear cut. It's interesting, maybe in the Path of Soul, things aren't always quite as clear cut. That's interesting. Not always quite as clear. For instance, a metaphor I really like from what I consider to be goddess spirituality is the idea of a mist. And on a day like today, which is so gray and overcast, a mist could be out there, but so I was saying how we'd like to have things clear cut in our culture. I think that goes along with the idea that things would be more clear and more evident, but it's a little redundant, but anyway. But that's contrasted with what I would consider goddess spirituality, and the biggest metaphor that I've associated with goddess spirituality is this mist of unknowing, and that's totally different than our usual intellect. To me, the mist of unknowing is being in the stillness, being at rest, not knowing a lot of things, not having a lot of facts to go on. It's a idea, it's kind of like the idea of letting things be, like letting an idea take root in its own way, just letting things relax, letting things go. It's kind of like maybe it's like letting nature take its course. I don't know, I'm gonna have to work with this idea more because I feel like I'm having a little bit of trouble explaining it. But if on one side we have the intellect with its outline, the goddess mist is like just not knowing and being completely comfortable with not knowing, which is very different from our culture, I think, or the mainstream culture at least. And to be continued on that idea, because I feel like I'm trying to explain it, but the words aren't coming across quite as clearly as I would like, which may be appropriate maybe the goddess spirituality represented by a mist of unknowing is something that you have to contemplate and meditate on more than just being able to communicate it effectively. Maybe. Okay, so we have a kind of a slower pace today. I'm kind of enjoying it. Hope you are too. If you're still around at this point, you probably are at least tolerating it. I think it's good to have a slower pace, personally. Okay, we're going to switch over to the Shadowscapes Tarot. This is going to be a little bit different. It's totally different imagery in this deck of cards. Okay, let's see what we have here. First card is the Fool. That's interesting. So instead of Merlin being the Fool, in this deck of cards we have a woman with her arms outstretched, ready to soar, ready to take flight. It's really cool. My computer might shut down. 1 second. Let me make sure my computer doesn't shut down. Okay. There, I think I took care of that. So it's really interesting. I want to show the other Fool card again. Both of these cards, they're taking the Fool and they're completely transforming that card, I think. So we had Merlin, who's completely a wise person, and you wouldn't normally, except for the fact that this is the Hero card, you wouldn't normally assign him to the card of the Fool, I don't think. I mean, it could be saying that we're all beginners at every point, but I don't know, it's a little different still. And here we have the Fool as this woman who's completely beautiful, completely with her arms outstretched. She's just really surrendering to life and also welcoming what life has to offer. So both of these cards are very positive. And I feel like they just took the Fool card and they did turn it into more of the sense of a hero or someone just starting a journey in different ways, but not the traditional sense of the Fool, maybe, who's just going to not know at all what he or she is getting into. Seems like they changed that. Okay, now we have King of Wands. Wow, this definitely seems like a shaman. Looks like he is working with different animals. It's like a mystical idea of a shaman. Whoa. This is interesting. It looks like he's working with the idea of a lion or some type of enormous cat like that. It's interesting. I guess, like, I wouldn't know what it's like to be a shaman. I consider myself like kind of a mystic, but when I think of a shaman, I think of a man or a woman who really knows what they're doing. Like, I feel like I'm still starting off on my spiritual path, but when I think of a shaman, I think of someone who is very very steady, knows a lot of wisdom, knows almost exactly what they're doing, and they have those skills that they can bring to their community and help people. So, I don't know, it's interesting, this card, the shaman, came up through the position of the King of Wands. And I think that's inspiring, but at the same time, to me, it's a little bit intimidating. I don't know. Just to, because I was talking about this goddess mist of like this unknowing, and I'm kind of more comfortable with being aware of what I don't know at this point. So I don't know. So I think the path of soul can be a path that you can be on at any point, whereas the path of a shaman seems to be more of a sense of responsibility to others and some stuff like that. That's really interesting. Let's continue. Okay, this card is the Star. And I'm not doing reversed cards today, so I'm just leaving them on the upright position. This is definitely a card that represents mysticism to me, especially the way it's drawn in this deck. Okay, the fourth card is the Hermit. Whoa, I definitely think of the Hermit as a wise person. And the Hermit has a lantern light and a good vantage point for seeing the lay of the land. And the last card, before I try to look at the cards a little more closely again, is the Hierophant. And this Hierophant card is represented by a tree spirit. I feel like all of these cards are more established spiritual people or more established mystics, and it's not as much in the midst of the path. Not as much in the midst of the path. It's more like these characters who have been on a spiritual path for a while. So that's a little interesting to me. I think it's encouraging, but at the same time, I'm kind of interested in like things to be aware of on the spiritual path. Maybe these could be thought of as archetypes that are different ways of personifying different assistance you can receive on this path of soul. That would be pretty interesting to think of it that way. Because just to go through these again, we have the Fool with her arms outstretched. We have a Shaman in the King of Wands card, working with the Lion energy. We have the Mystical, represented by the Star card. Then we have two Wise cards, the Hermit and the Hierophant, holding a lantern and as a tree spirit. So let me look back at the Chrysalis Tarot. The Chrysalis Tarot gave us more of a sense of what to carry with you on the path of soul. I feel like it was almost saying, like, with these cards, like, let go of the sense of urgency because that's too stressful. Let the Tree of Life be one of your guideposts. And then definitely have a really good sense of balance. So I think we almost are left with more questions than answers with these cards. I think the only way to think about this is just to keep moving forward on your spiritual path. Keep determining for yourself what the path of soul is for you, and take the encouragement when you can, but at the same time be aware of everything you might not know yet. Thank you so much for tuning in for this kind of quizzical tarot reading, and I will see you next time.